Welcome to Mortgage on My Mind, where we take the mystery out of mortgages and make dreams of home ownership a reality. I'm Natalie Salins, a top 1% mortgage broker with 20 years of experience, based right here in sunny Los Angeles. If you've ever wondered about pre-approvals, appraisals, or what loan product is right for you, don't worry, I've got Mortgage on My Mind, so you don't have to. Each week, I'll bring you expert advice, real-life stories, and insider tips to help you navigate California's competitive real estate market with confidence. Whether you're buying your first home, refinancing, or just curious about how it all works, this podcast is for you. So let's talk mortgages, demystify the process, and make your real estate goals a reality. Ready to get started? Let's dive in. Hi, everybody. Welcome to Mortgage on My Mind. Today, I have the fantastic Kristine Campbell. She is a very well-experienced real estate agent based in Westlake Village in California. She has strong ties to the Conejo Valley community. She specializes, of course, in residential sales and investment properties, luxury homes and such. But she also works for a company called Quick Response that does restoration and construction and is extremely busy right now in the Palisades, of course, because of the fires that we experienced earlier this year. So we're going to chat about what the company does and construction loans and a little bit about what she is specializing in right now currently with those rehabs, and also how you can purchase fix and flips without having to actually pay for all of the construction yourself. So welcome, Kristine. Nice to have you on.
Thank you so much, Natalie. I'm glad to be here.
Awesome. Well, so tell us a little bit about Quick Response. And she was telling me earlier when we were like introducing each other ourselves that it sounds enormous. She's got like over 100 homes that they are currently working on, her company. Seems overwhelming.
Yeah, it's so crazy. I mean, these are called CAT events, and typically with Quick Response, we like to do a lot more commercial work. But being that the Palisades fire was so massive, we also have some homes in the Eaton fire as well that we're working on. We have been able to really focus in on helping homeowners. So the primary homeowners that we're helping are the ones who didn't necessarily lose their homes, but they have lots of ash and soot and smoke damage. And yeah, we're finding about 95% of the homes have lead contamination. And of those 95% of those homes, we're also finding high amounts of arsenic and other heavy metals. So our job is to really come in and to come clean these houses. I'm on the sales side and I have my project directors come in, but we have just a really interesting process in doing it. And I mean, even from the real estate side, I have learned so much about insurance and so much about restoration that has been so valuable to my clients on that side as well.
Yeah. I have a friend who has a home that was more than damaged in the Eaton fire. And she said that she went in because of the arsenic, which is so interesting how that's been found and developed in these houses somehow, that she went in with mask, with everything, and coughed for like 2 days.
Yeah.
After, and she was only in for like an hour. And she's like, I can't go back to that house. I have a son. Like, how can they manage, the house was not destroyed, but it was damaged and basically destroyed,
Yeah. Today I met with a client and probably one of the worst ones I've seen. The house itself doesn't look like it's been touched, but it's maybe a cul-de-sac of like 30 homes. There's 2 homes left on that street. So,
and this is a Palisades or Eaton?
It's in the Palisades.
In the Palisades.
So I was just there. Well, like I said, I just ran here from that.
Right.
And they have a 2-year-old and a 6-year-old, and the 2-year-old has asthma. And she's like, there's no way I can come back here. And everybody's like, well, what about the lead? Like everything was closed. Like why do I have all this lead contamination? We're finding it on all the windowsills and all the, the door entries, a lot of the fireplace entries. But lead in general is a really heavy metal and it doesn't typically fly around. So it's just really indicative of how strong these winds were in the Palisades. So we're finding a lot of that. And what happens is half the stuff in the house becomes total loss. Anything that's a soft good, computers, refrigerators, because anything that circulates air in a fan can be circulated back in the air no matter how clean your house is. So that's where companies like ours comes in, and we're able to kind of help homeowners. But with this particular homeowner, with only 2 homes on this whole block left, she's like, I don't know what to do. Do I buy or do I sell? Do I buy something else? So it's leaving a lot of these homeowners like in this kind of like limbo land. Do
Totally.
I buy? Do I sell? Do I rent? Do I restore? Like, and it's just, it opens up this can of
Yeah.
worms.
And so, I mean, I know a lot of my clients are actually like, should I just take the money from insurance and pay off the loan? And then that way I don't have the mortgage to pay for every month. But now they don't have money to restore it. And they're basically left with a piece of land or a damaged, very much destroyed home.
Yeah.
And can they sell it? And what do they sell it for? So it's like this, because I think it's just too overwhelming and daunting for them to think about restoring. So
And it's a process. And one thing that I have to say from the real estate side, because, I do buy and sell homes all the time for my clients, and being there on the restoration side, these are conversations that we're having. And I feel fortunate that I have this whole real estate background to be able to give them this insight.
yeah,
And I mean, whenever we talk to clients, even you as a mortgage person, like you want to talk, like, what are the comps? What are the CMAs? And like, let's talk about that. Right now, it's practically nothing. Nobody wants to live there. And nobody
right.
wants to
Well,
live.
how can you even sell it? You know what I mean?
But ironically, there are so many things. You drive down PCH, there are properties that were burnt down right on the ocean that already have signs up. There's a couple that already are sold. There are homes that have survived. And the conversation that you have with those clients is like, why don't we go ahead and restore the house? Go through the insurance process. But the problem with that is a lot of these people are saying, I would have been better off with my home burning, because the process of dealing with insurance right now is a nightmare. And as you know, from the mortgage side, you can't obtain a mortgage without insurance. And this entire community, the Palisades, and even over in the Eaton fire, they're going to be uninsurable properties. And God knows what's going to happen to, the FAIR plan. So it's going to make it really interesting in the mortgage world too, to see where we're going to go and how I think it's going to change the face of buying and selling homes, at least in Southern California.
In these areas for sure. I mean, there is a special program that I haven't talked about on here, but I've mentioned a bunch in my realtor groups and things like that, which is an FHA rehab loan. So there's FHA 203Ks, which are standard renovation loans, but FHA actually has a special program for rehabs for homes that have been damaged or destroyed or are no longer existing
Hmm.
due to a natural disaster. And so they will give you 100% of the value towards a rebuild. They'll give you a loan for it. They won't count the current mortgage against your debt.
Really?
Yes. And they'll give you up to 100% to rehab with.
So, but then
Amazing.
I'm just curious, because now as my realtor brain, I'm thinking of this is how this can help my clients. So you're still paying off your original 30-year mortgage. So you still have that payment, but it's
You
not going to
do.
count to your loan to value or
It's not going to count for your debt to income.
debt to income.
So
Sorry.
I don't have to count it as like a second mortgage that you have to pay per month. FHA doesn't count it.
Okay.
You can handle that mortgage as you need to. You can either pay it off and you get a new mortgage up to 100%. You can keep it, put it into forbearance for a little while as you try to figure out what you're doing. You can also buy a new property up to 100% of the value, up to 1.2 million, because that's
So it doesn't
the
have to
highest
be-
that
it doesn't
FHA
have to be the
goes.
same property then.
No.
Just a brand new
You
one.
could have been a renter and buy a property up to 100% of the value.
Wow.
And we don't have to count the debt against you. So it's a cool program. There is mortgage insurance, of course, because the loan to value is 100, but they will give you the money to rebuild or give you the money to go buy something new.
That is really cool. I've not heard of that loan.
Yeah. It's a rehab loan, not a renovation loan.
Okay.
So it's different. And we'll get into like what renovation loans are and how people can take advantage of that for fix and flips. These homes that we're talking about,
you don't necessarily take advantage of a fix and flip in this case. This is like trying to get people back into their homes or try to figure out how to house them,
Mhm.
which has been daunting. I do a ton of business in Altadena, and I had to speak to a slew of clients on the daily after the fires, and it was incredibly difficult. It was a really hard 2 or 3 weeks.
Definitely an emotional journey. You don't realize that even as a professional dealing with these people because you're
Yeah.
dealing with like the biggest investment and your home is your sanctuary. And then, when you're home, it makes you feel so good. And,
Yeah.
so you're feeling what they're feeling, but then you're trying to come up with solutions for them.
Yeah. Yeah. It was a lot, but a lot of the people are settled and figuring it out. Like I said, unfortunately, a lot of my clients decided to just take the insurance money and not deal with the rehab, and they paid off their mortgage, and now they're sitting on the lot waiting for things to happen. Because in LA County, they halted the need to pay taxes. So your county taxes are on hold. And of course, there is no insurance. So there really isn't a housing payment at this point if you get rid of the mortgage. And so they're kind of sitting on the land, waiting to see what's going to happen and waiting to see if they will sell the lot and what to actually do about it. Because they can always do a loan after to rebuild, like
Right.
we call a cash out renovation loan. But it's sad to me because Altadena is such a special place. Palisades is too, of course, but the community of Altadena was very special and has been there so, so long. And we worry that a big developer is going to go in and just buy all these lots from these owners that kind of just want to sell the lot because they can't deal
Yeah.
and, make it look like an Americana or something.
Well,
So,
and that's a real fear. I mean, because we're
yeah,
already seeing it in the Palisades, and there are people that are coming in
yeah,
Pasadena as well. But that actually leads me to a mortgage question for you then. So, what about these people that do decide to sell their land, their house is burned down? So, and I'm an average Joe and I want to buy land because maybe I want to invest in that because I'm looking at it as an opportunity. What kind of
sure.
loans are available to me as average Joe, knowing that I'm buying in a fire zone?
Well, on a lot loan, we won't ask about insurance because you only really insure homes,
Mhm.
you insure structures, not
Yeah.
necessarily land. But normally they're 40 to 50% down to buy a lot.
Okay.
But you're starting in a much better place buying this type of lot because there was a COO at one point. And
Mhm.
having a certificate of occupancy at some point in history means that you can do renovation loans. So I have a client once that bought a burned down house in Malibu. And there has to be an existing foundation slab from the original structure. And this had like half of the foundation slab remaining. And we were able to use it and build upon it because the home itself has to lie in the area that the COO was originally given. So we have to use that slab somehow. So they bought the land for 600,000. We bought it
Mhm.
for them.
Yeah.
Plus we gave them 800,000 to build the house. So the total was like 1.4. They put 300 down. So keep in mind, they had like 400 in the bank. That wasn't going to do anything for them. That wasn't even going to get them the lot.
Yeah.
Besides, get them obviously all the renovation. They were building a house from the ground up. And this is a standard renovation loan, not an FHA, just a standard, what we call home style with Fannie
Okay.
and Freddie, standard renovation. So they used the entire 800,000. They ended up having to come in with some more money on their own because they were building a really phenomenal house that was all green and everything about it was like incredible. And they were contractors, so they knew what they were doing. And the after value, so when we were done, they had a loan of 1.1 and the after value was 1.9.
Oh, wow.
And I can't even imagine what it is now, right?
Yeah. That's like instant equity for
An
them.
incredible amount of equity. And yes, it's a lot of work. Nothing, I always say money isn't free. Money is never
Right.
free. So that equity, they worked for that because building a house from the ground up. But they started with electric, they started with gas lines, they started, all of that was already there from the original. And that's why that's what a renovation loan is. You need to already have that. So buying a plain vacant, if it's vacant lot, that's an enormous amount of work, and renovation loans don't work that way.
But for
But
these burned down lots,
for
because
these burned down lots, we can try
Yeah.
to do the same thing.
Because, I've had a lot of conversations with buyers, specifically like first time or second time home buyers, and they want to they want to upgrade, but they're like, I can't afford it. So, these lots, yes, it's somebody else's loss, but it's somebody else's opportunity.
Yeah.
And I know a lot of these homeowners, some of them are desperate and will be like, developer, go ahead, give me all your money. Others are like, I don't want to develop in here. And they're going to take somebody, maybe a first time home buyer that wants to up level their house, but can't necessarily afford it any other way. And this is a really interesting way to do it, which is why I
100%.
asked.
Yeah, 100%. Because as you know, if this same couple were to try to buy the house on that lot, they'd be charged 1.9.
Right.
But they bought the lot for 700 and we got them a loan for 1.1. So they were able to get it, it was 1.4. So really but it was 500,000 less
Yeah.
than what
But
they
it's
would
still instant equity,
instant equity, and then they can afford it, right? Because people who can afford 1.1 can't afford 1.9 normally.
Right. Because that big gap, that $500,000 gap is a lot to a lot of people, to most people.
100%, yeah. So that it is a great way to structure something around building. It's more, is it ready to be built on? I mean, these lots are like so damaged at this point. When do you think that will start happening?
Well, I mean, even today I drove by one that already started the construction. So some of these,
Seriously?
they were one of the first. There's only I've only seen two starting to be rebuilt in the areas that I'm driving. A lot
Okay.
of it is still in the demo mode. And so what's going to happen is, it has, first of all, the lot has to get cleared. And then you have to have certain environmental things come out before you start actually demoing the structure
Right.
itself. You've got to make sure there's no propane tanks, there's no batteries, there's no any of those like explosive type of leaching kind of things like that, think toxic like that. And then once that comes in and you just see dump trucks, like if you go down Lost Hills Canyon or through Malibu Canyon, anywhere, you just see truck after truck. And so they're just demoing all this stuff. And then once that's done, a lot of times you're gonna have to get the soil tested. So
That's what I was going to ask.
yeah. So when you get the soil tested, more than 9 times out of 10, it's going to come back contaminated just because lead is heavy, it settles, arsenic, all of that. So what's going to happen there is the standard protocol is to get 4 to 6 inches off of the top taken off, which is a lot. But then it's labor. These are all expenses that people don't understand. I mean, it's so expensive to clear a lot. It's the labor, it's the hauling. It's because you get, when you dump things, it's by the pound. And so dirt's not light. So
And where do you dump that? Like, where do you dump contaminated dirt?
Wherever they can, which is where there's been such big controversy. I'm in Westlake Village, but there's a dump out in Simi Valley. There's one in Calabasas, which is next to Hidden Hills. There are people that are fighting it on the daily, and then dumps can only take so much debris in a day. It's like amount of pounds or something like that. And once they reach that max, then they're tapped out, they're done. So it'll be interesting because if you even drive through right now, there are so many houses that haven't even been touched. And we're just talking about this area, not even Eaton Fire. We still have that whole place that's, getting demoed as well. And so I don't know where all the excess is going to go when everything's filled up, because then you still have to, cater to the rest of the population on trash days.
And even homes that are still standing there that are obviously not habitable at this point, don't they have to check their soil?
Oh yeah. So again, with this particular couple that I met with today, just because I met with them and they have all the issues, literally every single house around them, they live on this double cul-de-sac. So they're on this corner and there's 8 houses on their little cul-de-sac. And there's probably 20 more on the cul-de-sac that goes down. And there's only one other house.
Oh my God.
And they all have had to have their lots cleared. And so a lot of the lots in that neighborhood have been cleared, but then that debris kicks up everything and then it settles back down. And so they have astroturf in their backyard. So they're gonna have to get that all torn out. Because first of all, there's a bunch of like ember burns all over it. There's like hole after hole. And then all that stuff settles. And then we know astroturf is, porous, it goes through. So now all of that's going to have to be removed. And then the other issue is she's like, I think the pipes under the ground are melted because, irrigation pipes are pretty shallow under the dirt. And
Right.
the house right next to her burned, and it charred the side of her house where it actually cracked a couple of her windows. And,
Jesus.
and the windowsill, like the plastic part, the rubber was all melted. So if it did that, you have to worry. It's not just what you can see. There's a lot that you can't
Yeah.
see.
Oh, yeah.
So
Like
it's
a
crazy.
friend of mine in the Eaton, her house survived, whatever you call that. But
Yeah.
like her car, one of her cars was in the driveway, completely destroyed.
Yeah.
And it wasn't that it was destroyed by fire, it was destroyed by all the debris. It was destroyed by what happened to the house next door.
Yeah.
She can't use it, and there is no insurance for that.
No, there isn't.
There's
was
no, like,
interesting.
the insurance on your home isn't going to cover your car, and your car insurance doesn't cover
Natural disasters.
fire. So, like, if it's still there, so she had to buy a whole new car, and that was $30,000. She just
And you
had,
don't plan for that.
you had to throw that car away. She couldn't get any of that refunded to her. And
Yeah.
then she says it's just like a daily fight with the fact that she needs an entire new roof, and she
Yeah.
needs, because even though it's there, it's not going to work, and it's damaged just by the chemicals, like you said.
Right.
And they were like, well, we'll give you 11,000 for the roof. He's like, I don't know who you think is going to accept $11,000 to replace my 3,000 square foot home roof,
Yeah.
So she just said every single day she's
It's a
fighting,
fight.
but she wants to keep her home, and she wants to be able to. So how, in this case, do you guys work with insurance? Do you create a full bid? Like, what does that look like for you?
Typically, when we go out, we'll go out and we do, in real estate, we use Matterport, right? So we virtually tour the home. So with quick response, not every company does this, but we do it. We also use Matterport to virtually inventory the home. And what we're able to do is we're able to pull that into a system called Xactimate. All the insurance companies use it. It's how they come up with their insurance process. And so we're able to pull that into Xactimate, and it basically gives you a dollhouse imprint of the house when you're doing Matterport. So we're able to do all our measurements from there. And then our project directors go through the house and they take notes, and we do all the things. And so then we come up with our scope, aka estimate of work, and the things that we recommend. But we always recommend getting environmental testing done, which should never be done by the remediation company, because that's a conflict of interest. Because I could say, oh yeah, you have lead, and then your bid goes up. So it's a conflict of interest. So it's always an independent company. So we take their testing results, we take our Matterport, and we take our scope, and we bring all these things together and we give our recommendations. We go over that with the homeowner, and then they might say, oh no, we really need that to be total loss because our kid has asthma and there's no way they're going to sleep on that mattress again. So then we add that to a total loss list. So once we come up with our general scope, then we submit that to the adjuster. But where we're having issues right now is the further we get away from this fire event, and this is going to be with any catastrophe. I'm working with a project director who came out from North Carolina and just got done working with the hurricanes back in like October. They just finished up a job. And the further you get away, the more difficult insurance companies get, because they realize how much they're paying out. And so we're finding a lot of public adjusters getting involved. So if they hire a public adjuster, we work with them as well. And because the public adjuster works for the homeowner, we work
Totally.
for the homeowner.
Yeah.
The adjuster works for the insurance company. So sometimes they don't get along, but at the end of the day, we're here as a company to advocate for our clients. So we try to basically build our case with evidence, testing, Matterport, visual inspections, pictures, lots of pictures, and we build our case to try to get as much coverage as possible. More times than not, we're not. Like an $11,000 roof is insane. You can't even get that done in a normal market.
Right. Exactly. And then you are also, so quick response will also do the construction, or you're just the mediators, and then
We're both.
you're both. So you're
Yeah.
contractors as well.
Right. So we're fully licensed to remediate mold, asbestos, lead, and we're fully licensed contractors. We typically do not do new builds. We can, but we typically do not. But we will do rebuilds. or partial construction. So say like you have a flood in your house, right? We can not only just remediate the mold, but we can also do all the flood cuts, redo all of the drywall, the paint, put your cabinetry back in, get all the orders, because we are fully licensed as contractors. We have some roofs that have damage to them because of embers coming in. And we can also go ahead and remediate and fix that stuff as well.
Got it. So cool.
So we're like full service. It's kind of a one-stop shop. And we even have some clients that have like very expensive artwork. So we work with different art restoration companies.
Restoration place, yeah.
Yeah. And so basically we're still under one roof. So if you come to me and say, Kristine, I have like this, big Michelangelo, like whatever, and I need it to be restored to like cleaned and stored. So we take it off site, but we will sub them out for you. So that way you're not calling the art restoration person, the pool person, because as contractors, you can sub out. So that's essentially what we do. But a lot of the stuff we do in-house, just we're not art restorers.
Got it. That's amazing. So cool. And how did you get into this?
Well, when real estate slowed down, I'm a single mom with 3 kids, and real estate slowed down. And I have been able to ride the real estate wave for 10 years. But with a kid going to college and another one starting to drive, expenses, especially here in California, are super high, and I needed some more stability. So I started looking, and somebody recommended this company, and they're a very reputable company. We're out of Santa Barbara, Santa Maria, and Ventura.
Oh, cool.
And we were just purchased by a national company in Florida called Custom Restoration. And it's a privately held company, but we're still locally, Quick Response is still run by the original owners. And it was just really great because here it is, it's in my area, my territory that I already know and I already sell in. And I didn't realize how much the two industries would be married together, because they go hand in so many ways.
Yeah. Wow, that's
It just kind of fell in my lap a little bit, but I was seeking out a job. I just didn't think restoration was it, but here we are.
But here you are, right? I mean, the fact that what happened this year, that you would be so needed and valued.
Well, and it's been great. I'm involved in we have this thing called Coffee and Collab every Wednesday in Westlake Village. And instead of being like the Sotheby's meeting, the Keller Williams meeting, it is a cross brokerage sales meeting, essentially. And we bring our buyer wants and needs, and, our pitches. And we also have people like you come in and they do like a quick little presentation. So I always introduce myself. Hey, I'm Kristine Campbell with Sotheby's in Westlake Village and Quick Response. And I'm able to be that resource even to my realtor friends who have used my company. Because how many times have we gone in and we've done inspections and we're like, oh my God, there's mold. And you don't know who to call.
There's so much. How many times have you gone in and the entire sewer needs to be replaced? Or
exactly.
I always tell my clients when they get freaked out after inspections and they're like, I think we're going to cancel, whatever.
Yeah.
I always say a house is a living thing.
Yes.
It's a living, breathing thing.
Yeah.
And it ages just the way we do. And if you don't take care of it, it doesn't age well.
Right.
But it doesn't mean it doesn't have a lot of value to it. You just have to fix it up a bit, get it healthy again, and then it will be healthy for you for a long time. That normally.
That's why these loans that you offer, the restoration loans and the renovation loans, they're so relevant to homeowners, because it gives them the opportunity where if you don't have the cash in the bank, it really gives the opportunity to avoid all that deferred maintenance, because it is this living entity that is constantly being abused and used, but that's what homes are for.
Totally. I have an amazing renovation loan story, and you do have to be certified in it, which I've been for about 15 years. So we're in escrow on a standard single family residence, like in West Adams. And the owner goes out to dinner and doesn't realize she left a candle on in her bedroom.
Oh, no.
Came home for it. We're in escrow. We're like day 15 in escrow.
No.
Her entire half of the bedroom, the half of the house where the bedroom and part kitchen, burned.
Oh my God.
Hole in the roof, it burned up, right? And of course, my buyer kind of still wants the house, but is like, is she going to fix it? And I was like, what it's going to take for her to get money from insurance? Who knows how long that's going to take, right? So I was like, we're switching this into renovation. we're going to make this a renovation loan. And I closed that loan in 25 days from that point. Because
That
we
is
had to get
impressive.
bids, you know what I mean? We had to get contractor bids and had to be approved. We had to do an after renovation value with an appraiser
Mm,
because we had an appraisal, but that no longer mattered anymore. And then what happens when you do renovation is once we have all the bids in from the contractor and it's detailed, we don't want like 10 windows, 2 blah,
right.
blah. No, we need to know exactly what you're buying because we have to understand if it's going to actually value to the house. Is it going to add to our overall value?
Yeah.
And so it goes in for underwriting. And once the underwriter approves the bid, that's when the appraisal takes place. Because the appraiser goes out with the bids and it's like, oh, they're going to add 200 square feet here. They're going to add a bathroom. They're going to add this. Based on these bids, what is the after renovation value? And so she was buying this house at the time. It was like 740,000. And her renovation bid ended up being like 85,000, which is close to what the seller was going to get from insurance. It ended up being like 70 grand. So
Okay.
the seller gave our buyer 70 grand and we lowered the value by 70. We did a renovation of 85 because she's like, hey, I'm going to do a new kitchen. Like
Might
she's
as
like,
well.
I'm going to do all new cabinets. I want to do all new blah, blah, you know, like I'll put an extra 15 in since I'm getting 70 off. We literally replaced that 70 that the seller gave her because, and the seller didn't walk away either, like with anything less than what she wanted because she got that 70 back from insurance. So
Right.
she had waited to know, right, to what they were going to give her. And then we kind of made it work from there. So for 85,000, she bought it for 740. She was only putting 5% down. The after renovation value was 940.
Nice.
I know. I mean, it was like,
That's amazing.
I know. So the seller gave her off 70,000. She only bought it for 670. We did it, you know, for 755, worth 940 after the renovation.
That's awesome. I love these like creative stories
I
because
know, right? Like,
not enough people know how to be creative about these
I
things.
know. And it makes people so much happier. Like she sent me
Totally.
pictures after and she's like, I thought I was going to have to renovate and spend money on this kitchen whenever I got the money.
Yeah.
Now I was able to do it and look at my kitchen. It's exactly as I would want it. It's not like I'm living in somebody else's. I'm living in my, like the stories are really incredible and
Yeah.
gratifying for our clients because they get to live in the home as if they built it.
Yeah.
But we can do small renovations. We can do just a renovation of a bathroom into this, you know, the main thing
It's
with
being creative
renovation.
with moving money around, and that's what's so cool. When
Yeah.
like you know how to be creative, but so many people think inside the box. And we're not in that home environment anymore or mortgage environment where you can just be standard. There's no standard.
Not written, especially in Los Angeles.
Right.
There's
Well,
like
LA,
nothing
Ventura,
fits inside of anything. It's
no, it
all
does
is
not.
outside.
They're all difficult.
Yeah.
But when you have a
Yeah.
good mortgage person, you can get through it.
We do our best. Yeah. You know, I've learned to be very, very creative through varying different markets because I've been in the business over 20. So
That's
I've
impressive.
kind of seen it all and
Yeah.
strikes and markets crashing and, you know, everything.
And fires.
And now fires. Yeah.
Yeah. Hope there's just no more, not anytime soon. At least we can get a year out of these fires and no more big
Knock on wood.
disasters.
Yeah. And so tell me a little bit about your real estate business and how I think you specialize in some like luxury market and investment purchases and such.
Yeah, so I'm out here in Westlake Village and I deal only in residential. I've
Okay.
thought about dabbling in commercial and who knows, maybe one day I will when I don't have 2 jobs that I'm juggling and 3 kids. But I deal mostly with luxury homes. They're a little bit easier in general, but your clientele sometimes is a little bit more demanding in that sense. But I also work with several flippers, and those are super fun because I just get to go out and look at things that normally people wouldn't look at. And that old saying, one man's trash is another man's treasure.
Yeah.
And I love when we find like the little dump that we just make into this amazing, beautiful place. And then my clients makes extra money So then I love
Yeah.
that. So those are so fun for me. I've had one of the flops where we did a flip, but it ended up being a flop. And it was there's a area called Seminole Springs. It's in Agoura, and it's right
Oh,
off of Mulholland, or just off, it's a little trailer park. And back in the day, there was actually like little hot springs, and it was a place that you can go.
oh, cool.
And they created this whole like little trailer park, but we're kind of like all the Malibu hipsters are kind of gravitating toward. They can't afford Malibu, so they come over the hill. And a lot of the people are aging out. So I found my flipper a great one, but somebody died in it. They overdosed. But they renovated it. Absolutely gorgeous and beautiful. But everything was going amazing until the fire started. And that's when the Palisades fire started.
Oh, wow.
And then they got dropped from their insurance. And there's no way we're gonna be able to sell this. So that ended up being a flop. And thankfully they had another property that we're going to sell. It's a little townhome in Westlake Village, and they're moving their elderly mother into that one. But, not all flips are awesome. But,
I would say what, like 95% of the time they're fine, but
yeah, 95%.
90 or so.
Yeah. And I mean,
It's expensive here
the flip.
to renovate, to actually
Yeah.
flip.
Well,
So,
in this particular client of mine, he's a contractor. No, he's no longer an active contractor. He's a retired contractor. So what he's doing in his retirement is they're taking the retirement money, purchasing homes, and then flipping them. And then they're taking that, putting it back into their retirement. And it also keeps him busy because he's like one of those people, he's retired, but he's not really retired.
yeah.
So he knows what he's doing, but even so, I mean, just with the cost of living and then specifically insurance, it's making doing some of these flips a little bit harder, especially in fire prone areas. And this is in the Santa Monica Mountains off of Mulholland. So it's all fair plan, and just, as we know, fair plan's gonna be in a world of trouble
Yeah.
pretty soon.
I don't know what they're going to do. I mean, I've got great insurance reps that have found alternate ways other than California Fair Plan. There
Yeah.
are some insurance companies that are coming out of the woodwork, like places I've never heard of. I've never heard of these companies, but they are coming in to kind of, subsidize the
Yeah.
California Fair Plans and help with them, because they recognize that the homes and the values are still there.
Yeah.
And I think the risk of having another fire in that exact same area is probably pretty darn low. They always say earthquake insurance is only as high as there are earthquakes. So the moment an earthquake happens, your earthquake insurance goes down tremendously because the risk of another one happening is very low.
Yeah.
But every year that you go without an earthquake, your earthquake insurance goes up yearly because the risk of having one becomes greater.
Right.
Like kind of
But
messed
see,
up.
with the insurance market, I feel like is a little bit different because, we're having so many of these natural disasters on both sides of the coast, with the hurricanes and the fires.
Totally.
So it's going
Not
to
just California.
no, but like you said, there's all these like little companies coming out because they're finding like their niche, they're coming out of the
Totally.
works. And I've seen this
They're like, hey, we can make money off of this, and we're willing to insure. And they're random small boutique companies, but my reps at like Goosehead and even farmers have been able to like figure out a way to not necessarily go fair plan.
Yeah, because fair plan doesn't cover everything. And even when you have the fair plan, you have to get a wraparound, because if you don't get that wraparound, and I had this issue with the townhome I was selling where they got dropped from State Farm for the HOA. So then they got the fair plan, and the insurance agent, this is on them, forgot to say that you need a wraparound. You're not fully covered. So when we went to go sell this house, I had this little place listed.
Yeah.
When the buyer came in, we couldn't get them funded because the insurance wasn't, we were underinsured, and the mortgage broker is the one that caught that. And so they brought that to the HOA, and the HOA then got a wraparound. But there's so much miseducation. And this is why realtors need to know, mortgage brokers need to know, HOAs. I mean, we all need to know what's going on with insurance.
Yeah.
Because it affects you and me.
But HOAs are having a hard time insuring right now.
Very difficult
Like
time.
condos are having their own struggle getting insurance, and like having to up their insurance by a massive amount. And there's
And then you
something
have to
now
assess
that they're doing, they're
the
called
homeowners.
And then they have to put it on the homeowners.
Yeah.
So they're like, we don't want to have to make the homeowner pay another $300 a month in order to get appropriate insurance. And so they're underinsuring.
Yeah.
Because they're afraid to go back to the homeowners and up their assessment, or not assessment, but up their HOA monthlies. But so a lot of condos are coming in underinsured right now. Like they don't have a fidelity
really
bond.
scary.
Yeah.
Well, and that's why condos are sitting on the market so much longer. I mean, I have one right now and the HOA was 455 and they did just what you said. I mean, you could take it out of the reserves, but then when you take it out of the reserves, you risk another disaster happening.
A whole other problem.
A whole other problem. So, I mean, you have to assess the homeowner. So what they did is they broke it out over 11 months and then they assessed an additional $215. And then they were going to do their 25% yearly increase. And so now the HOA dues are 780 and from 455
25% yearly is insane.
Yeah. Well, I think it was 25%. So, but I mean, it's just, I think that's how the bylaws were written. I may be overestimating that.
Unbelievable.
But regardless, it went from 455 to 780. And this is what's happening. So when people are selling, oh, I've got an $850,000 townhome. But then you're asking your buyer, so what's the HOA? And then that starts bringing it up. And then all of a sudden they're not qualified anymore. That $780 payment per month, as you know, kicks people out of that qualification. So it's been a really interesting process.
Condos are tough right now. Yeah, that's a whole other conversation. But yeah, especially with SB 326. So we won't even get into that. But
and we're dealing with that on the restoration side as well, because we're getting a lot of that work. But that's another conversation, as you said.
Oh my God, I bet. I mean, and it has to be done quickly or you're not going to really be able to sell well in that condo.
Right. And just as a background, do you want to tell your listeners kind of what that is, just really quick? Because they're probably like,
SB 326?
Yeah.
I might have talked about it, but maybe not. So SB 326 is a new law that actually was supposed to come into play last year, but they extended it by a year. And it's for any walkways or any balconies, anything that is outside that
6 feet or higher.
Over 6 feet or higher. Yeah, 6 feet or higher. That's made of wood. That's also important to say. It has to be inspected by January 1st, 2026.
And it has to be inspected by an engineer. And then you have a deadline to get it done. So, and then
the county is coming out and inspecting to make sure. And then depending on their inspection, then of course, and it's based on like fair risk, critical risk, like it's based on what I think 1 to 4, what they're leveling it as. If repairs need to be done, the law says we're not supposed to fund a loan on the property until all repairs are complete.
Ooh, and that makes it hard for homeowners wanting to sell their townhomes.
Crazy. And if they want to, then they have to lower the price because now we have to go with a different type of lender that will do it. But of course they do it at a higher rate. And so it's just like, it's managing what that looks like.
I know that's a whole other conversation. I just thought it'd be interesting for people who don't know.
Leaning on my non-warrantable condo investors. I've been leaning on them quite a bit.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
Well, there's a whole slew of issues right now.
Well, it's the market. It's buying. All in all,
something.
It's still LA. It's still such a great market for people to purchase because values are still coming up.
Yeah, which is great. It's holding its own.
It really is holding its own, even with the devastation of the beginning of this year.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah. Well, it was lovely chatting with you. Was there anything else that of course, we're going to put all your information on the bottom and your Instagram and all of that and your contact info so anyone listening can get in touch. But anything else that you wanted to add or share with our audience? Right?
No, but if any of your audience has any questions about restoration or investing, or you're in the Ventura County area, even the West LA, I service all those areas for real estate. So I'm always here for you guys.
Amazing. You've been so highly informational. This was such a great learning experience for me because I haven't really talked to anybody on the ground dealing daily with the backlash of the fires. So thank you so much for sharing.
Well, thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
Yeah, such a pleasure. Thank you.
Thanks for listening to Mortgage on My Mind. If you're ready to start your mortgage journey or have any questions, I'd love to help. With 20 years of experience, I make the process as simple and stress-free as possible. Check the show notes for my contact info, and don't forget to subscribe, leave a review, and share this podcast. Until next time, I'm Natalie Salins, here to help make your real estate dreams a reality.